Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Let Me Bend Your Ear podcast. My name is Frank. I'm the host of the show. On this podcast, I discuss and review movies new and old. You can find the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, available on most podcasting platforms such as Spotify, Amazon, iHeartRadio, etc. If you go to Google and search for the Let Me Bend Your Ear podcast, you should be able to find it on any podcasting platform. You can also watch this podcast either live or at your leisure on the following channels: on YouTube, at Bend Your Ear Pod is the handle; on Rumble, the Let Me Bend Your Ear podcast is how you would find it there; and also on X. I'm working to redo the Facebook page for the podcast, so that's going to be the Let Me Bend Your Ear podcast. You can follow that page there on Facebook. There won't be live videos there, but I will upload the videos because they just changed the retention time on them. So if you do a live there, it'll only stay for 30 days. And obviously, I want to keep those videos up permanently. So you can watch it live on YouTube and on Rumble and on X as well. They actually only stay on X for a limited amount of time, too. I'm trying to figure out what's going on with that. They should be permanent, but for some reason, my older videos on X are not accessible anymore. So I don't know why that is. But if you tune into an episode or if you watch them on X within the first month or two of when they broadcast live, you'll be able to watch them on X if that's your preferred place to watch them. Now, if you want to help support the show, there's a QR code on the top here if you're watching the video, or you can go to X at Bend Your Ear Pod and donate there. That just helps kind of offset the cost of the show. All right. So, as I stated in the last episode a couple of days ago, I just reviewed To Live and Die in LA. And tonight I'm going to actually review a new movie. I know in the last episode I said that it would be probably a steady stream of older movies, but fortunately, a new Netflix movie was released yesterday, starring Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. I had actually forgotten that this was coming out, and then I just saw it on the Netflix queue, so I watched it yesterday. So I'm going to discuss that one today. That is called The Rip. So again, got the black and white. Let me know how you like it. I seem to like it a lot. I think I'm going to keep it. So we'll continue the video portion of it in black and white. I really do like it, actually. I think it's a nice aesthetic, and we'll continue to use it. All right. So for today's episode, again, I'm going to be reviewing The Rip. Now, The Rip stars Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. So, of course, it's a pretty famous pairing. They famously came up together as actors, as young actors, and of course, wrote the Oscar winning screenplay for Good Will Hunting, which they both co wrote and kind of set their careers on a trajectory where they both pretty much became movie stars. So, this is a Netflix released film. I read a lot about it in the pre-production. It's set in Miami. They shot it in Miami. The director and screenwriter is Joe Carnahan, and I've heard of him. I've never actually seen any of his films. I know he is a director of masculine action films. That's pretty much been his calling card. But I said this is the first actually Joe Carnahan film that I've seen. So I was looking forward to checking it out. I watched the trailer; it looked pretty interesting. And again, with Netflix, it's kind of interesting because I've reviewed Netflix movies here and there, and the reputation of Netflix movies are pretty spotty, probably mostly negative. Most of the Netflix movies I've seen are okay to not good. There's a couple of exceptions. I mean, the biggest examples of famous movies, the two that I can think of the most that generated the most buzz was Martin Scorsese's The Irishman and Alfonso Cuarón's Roma, both of which I watched there. I reviewed Roma. I don't think I reviewed The Irishman for this podcast, actually. Big fan of that movie. Roma, I gave a qualified recommendation. There were parts about it I loved, but you can go back into the podcast feed and listen to that review of Roma. All right. So let's get into The Rip. So The Rip opens, again, as I stated, it's set in Miami. It opens with a female police officer who is being pursued by shooters that are trying to kill her. She's frantically trying to elude them while she's got her cell phone out. She's trying to text somebody a message on her cell phone. She is ultimately shot and killed, and is able to get a message out to whoever she was texting. So that's the start of the movie. So it turns out that the woman that was killed was a captain in the Miami-Dade Police Department named Jackie Velez. So we were introduced to Matt Damon's character, who was her second in command, Lieutenant Dane Dumars. There's a scene early on. Dane is talking to a higher up regarding budgetary concerns, restrictions. There's a whole other team in the division of the department that has been disbanded for various reasons, but the main reason is they just don't have the money to keep these teams up and running, give overtime, things like that. So they're pretty much in a bad way, and you basically find out that the investigation into the captain's death is going to be undertaken, but it's not going to be with the full force of what you would think would happen when a police officer is murdered. So that kind of sets the stage to introduce her team, Jackie's team. So Dane is the lieutenant, and then you've got his closest friend on the team, Sergeant Byrne, who's played by Ben Affleck. You have Detective Mike Rowe, who's played by Stephen Young of Walking Dead fame. You have Detective Numa Baptiste, played by Tiana Taylor. And you have Detective Salazar, played by Catalina Moreno. So obviously, they're all upset about the murder of the captain. They want to try to figure out how to solve the murder. And obviously, you always see these in these, police movies where if it's somebody, a superior, you really shouldn't be investigating their murder because you have obviously an emotional tie to it, which could taint the investigation. So, of course, that's always an issue. But of course, they're going to investigate this crime anyway. So, Lieutenant Dane gets a text on his phone that basically lets him know that there is a stash house located in Hialeah, Florida. I am from Florida, so if you know the Miami South Florida area, different cities there. Hialeah is, I know from the time, even from the 90s and late 80s, it was an area where there was a lot of crime. There's nice areas, but a lot of crime as well. But he gets a tip that there's a stash house. So in that parlance, basically, a stash house is usually one of two things. Most of the time, it's drugs. And in this case, in the text, they have dollar signs. So it looks like it's probably drugs and or money. So Dane gets his team together after they close. So there's a scene where the group is kind of chilling out. It's the end of the day. They all clocked out, ready to, have some beers, relax, do what they do, let off steam. Where Dane comes to them and says, "Hey, look, I got a tip. I got a Crime Stopper tip. There's a stash house in Hialeah. We got to go hit it now." And of course, the team asks, "Wait a minute, well, are we going to get anybody else involved?" He's like, "No, we'll call it in when we get there." And of course, they ask the obvious question, "Hey, are we going to get overtime for this?" And he's like, "Look, we don't have any money. So either come with me or don't come with me. I'm going to hit this house, get this money, and get it turned in. We're gonna, get this done." So of course, all of his team goes with him. Nobody says no. So they go to the scene. They encounter. They knock on the door. They don't have a warrant. I forgot the term that they use, but this is basically a consent to search, I think, is what it is. So basically, it's below a warrant. Obviously the biggest difference is they have to get permission from the homeowner to enter the premises to search. So they run into a young woman there named Desiree Molina, who's played by Sarah Callie. So they get there. They say, "Hey, look, we want to check the house. We got a tip that there's drugs here. We want to check it out." So of course she's like, "Well, do I have to let you in?" They're like, "No, you don't. But if you could let us in, we could just check around and we can get in and out." So of course the girl admits, she goes, "Hey, I've got some weed in here," and the cops are like, "Hey, look, we're not worried about that. Don't even worry about that. We're just going to come in and take a quick look so we can go home. We want to get in and out of here. We're not looking to cause any trouble. Of course, they're being deceptive. So she signs the paper. She lets them in. So they bring a dog in, which when you assume is a drug sniffing dog. So as you see in all these movies. So they go in, they're checking the house. The house is kind of a mess. They're talking to Desi to ask her, hey, what's going on with the house? She proceeds to let the police know that, she's just staying there. It's not her house. It was her grandmother's house. She took care of her elderly grandmother, and the house is now on probate. So she's just been staying there. So she doesn't own the house. She's just been taking care of it. So as they search the house, they have the dog sniffing around, and the dog hits upon something, goes crazy. So it turns out this particular dog doesn't sniff drugs, it sniffs money. So of course, that's the text that Lieutenant Dane got, and they end up going up into the attic. Attic is completely clean, like it's painted white, nothing in the attic. It's completely clean. So of course, they continue to question Desi to find out what's going on. So eventually, they end up finding a secret passageway or a secret hole in the wall. And then when they get in there, there's like a bunch of hard containers, round cylindrical containers. So they get the containers out. They took a look inside, and it's cash. So, and it's a lot of cash. So they start to count the cash. And when they see the amount, everybody gets spooked. So Ben Affleck's character is questioning Matt Damon and say, hey, we need to call this in. This is a lot of money. This is not some little rinky-dink score here. You told me it was like $150,000. This is way more than that. So we need to get everybody involved. So Dane, the lieutenant, tells his sergeant, says, look, we're not doing that. I don't trust anybody. I don't know what's going on. Our boss just got murdered. I have no idea who to trust. We're keeping this between us, which sets off red flags for Sergeant Byrne, of course. So that's the main thrust of the first part of the movie. So you start to find out, you see Matt Damon's character acting suspicious, acting shady, which is spooking the rest of the team. So as they reveal more layers of the lieutenant's life, you come to find out he's had personal issues with his wife. He's recently lost his son. He's got a lot of financial strain going on in his life. So combine that with the fact that he's acting kind of shady and everybody's kind of on edge. So the protocol is whenever you seize money, you count the money on the scene. No money leaves the scene until it's all accounted for. So they start counting the money. The lieutenant directs everybody just to stay put, count the money. He takes all their phones, which is another red flag. And they count the money. And of course, everybody's like, what is going on? So you have, that's the tension that sets up the first half of the movie, which is the first half is really, really good. And you're trying to figure out what's going on. You're trying to figure out Dane's angle. Is he going to try to steal this money? What's going to happen? So that's the tension that's set up in the first half of that movie. And this is the strongest part of the movie. So the things that I found unique about this part of the movie is, with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, most of the time they've been together in films, they're usually friendly for the most part. I haven't seen The Last Duel, so I can't comment on the dynamics of the relationship in that movie, but historically, that's usually when they've worked together, that's usually how it's worked out. But what's fun about this movie is obviously with Ben Affleck, Sergeant Byrne questioning Matt Damon's Lieutenant Dumars, there's tension because he's wondering what the hell is going on. So Byrne he's asking him, what are you doing? Why are we not reporting this? Why are we not following protocol? What's going on? So that gets ratcheted up. And then the tension outside the house that they're at gets ratcheted up. You have two police officers, patrolmen that come up, trying to find out what's going on, and then they kind of sneak away into the night, which gets them even more spooked. And then as you see the neighborhood around the stash house, it's eerily quiet. You don't see any other neighbors. You don't see any other vehicles. You don't see any other activity whatsoever in this neighborhood. And so, of course, the assumption would be that this is a drug cartel stash house where they keep money, because there's no drugs anywhere other than the weed that Desiree says is in that she has in the house. So that's it, which is not what they're there for. So that tension gets ratcheted up. They're counting the money. They start to check around the neighborhood. Some suspicious things start happening, and then that culminates in calls starting to come in with threats, basically saying, "You need to get the hell out of there, or everybody's going to get shot and killed. Take your money, take the money, get out of there, or we're gonna shoot the house up." So of course that adds to the tension, and of course they made good on that promise because they don't leave the house in the time that's specified. House gets shot up, and then the action kind of ratchets up from there to the end of the movie. So again, really well done. I really enjoyed it. Um, the performances are really good. You also have Kyle Chandler, who's been in a bunch of movies. Very good actor. He plays a DEA agent that's friends with uh, with Dumars and Byrne, Matt Damon and Ben Affleck's characters. So you have his character in there as well, and it's fun to try to figure out what's going on. Like, that's kind of the thing. So that's the great part of the Rip. Now, the one thing that I did not like, and it's going to actually affect my final review, is there's something that happens in the movie that a character does that kind of tips its hand on what's going to happen later. If you've seen any, I mean, I read a couple of reviews and I've seen some talk about the movie, and there's a twist in it. There's a twist ending, and it's actually a pretty good twist. It's a pretty good twist, but the problem is the thing that a certain character does kind of tips that off a little bit. It doesn't tip it off fully, but enough that it kind of mars the impact of the twist had this other action had not taken place. Because when I was watching the movie and this thing took place, again, I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to spoil it. When this thing happens, it was readily apparent to me that was going to affect something down the line. So that's a major criticism for me, and that's unfortunate, because other than that, the movie's highly entertaining. And like I said, I'll ultimately recommend it when I get to my actual review. But it's really, really entertaining. Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, both really good. Stephen Yeun is good. It's a very good cast, and it's a very, edge of your seat, very good movie. It's kind of a throwback movie, cop movie, bad cop, good cops. Who's the bad cop? Who's the good cop? That's the strongest part of it. And like I said, the setup and what they do and the tension that's ratcheted up because of the circumstances that the police officers are in is really well done. The action is really good. It's fantastic. So that part of it is great. But like I said, the tip off from the actions of a certain character kind of really not ruined it. That's probably too strong a word. It marred the impact of the twist. Now, if you don't notice the same thing I noticed, the twist may hit you a lot harder, and you may be more surprised by the twist. So in that sense, it's it'll be great. But other than that, the movie is very, very entertaining. And like I said, Netflix movies, for the most part, are okay to not good at all. I haven't even reviewed it for the podcast. I don't even know if I am. I like Tom Hardy a lot. There's a Tom Hardy film. I forgot what it was called. I forgot the name of the movie now. I think it's a one-word title. It came out. I watched it when it was released. Looking forward to it because it was a straight-up action movie, kind of like The Rip. And it was awful. If I remember it, and I have a hole in my review list, I may just pop in there and review it and let you know. But it's not good, which is very disappointing because, like I said, I'm a big fan of Tom Hardy, but the movie was terrible. It was terrible. So The Rip is not terrible. It's very entertaining. I think if you're a fan of Affleck and Damon, if you're a fan of cop movies, action movies, you'll be satisfied with this movie. I think it's fantastic in that regard. So based on that, I'm going to go ahead and give. It was tough. I was veering between 3.5 and 4, because obviously with 4, that's a movie I would watch again. I'm gonna have to give it 3.5, because, like I said, for me, the tip off really marred my enjoyment of the twist. Like I said, it didn't ruin the movie, and even with my 3.5 star review, I would recommend the movie. I think you'll enjoy it, and I don't know if I would rewatch it myself, but if somebody wanted to watch it with me, for example, my wife wants to see it. She's a big fan of Damon and Affleck. If she wants to watch it, I would happily watch it again with someone else. I don't think I would do it independently, but I enjoyed it. There was a lot to like about the movie, and I think there's a lot to recommend that I think you'll enjoy it as well. It's funny because I'm giving it the same review that I gave To Live and Die in L.A., but kind of the same thing here. It's really good. It's good to have. What's great, like I said, is good actors lift, and not that the material is bad, but when you have really strong actors performing the script, it elevates the movie. And like I said, it's not like it's a terrible story that's elevated by great acting. It's a decent script that's elevated by really good acting. Like I said, for me, other than my, like I said, other than my kind of getting the tip too early for me in the movie is very entertaining. So I have no doubt that it's probably going to do really, really well as far as viewership and streaming numbers. And I know there's been a lot of talk around the movie. Obviously, when you have big stars like this in there, there's always the theater versus streaming. I don't know, controversy, whatever you want to call it, because obviously there's a huge concern about seeing movies in the theater as opposed to seeing them on streaming. And I'll say what I've always said about this. For me, I am a big advocate of the movie going experience, but I live in the real world as well. I know a lot of people don't have that same passion for it that I do, going to see movies in the theaters. And quite frankly, I'm not able to do it as much as I like, as I've stated previously. You know, 2 young children doing their activities, doing the things I have to do in life itself. It really prevents me from seeing movies at the rate that I would like to see them in the movies. And for me, in doing this podcast, and I've said this all through the time I've had it, with streaming, it makes it uh, a lot easier for me to see either movies that have recently been in the theaters or a movie like this that's been released directly to Netflix. So it's great because I get to review it right away and put it out on the podcast, and it'll be and it's a review of a brand new movie to intersperse in with the older films that I review, which I love to review as well. And like I said, I told you this is probably going to be a run of older movies, and that's still correct. But the fact that this got dropped yesterday is a nice surprise that I had forgotten, so I was able to watch it and get a review out timely on a new movie, which is great. I don't get to do it for this podcast very often, so that's where streaming is beneficial to me. My same spiel on the theater experiences. What concerns me, I think, is what concerns a lot of people, is the types of movies that end up not getting to the theaters. And I think I'll give a perfect example. What's the movie? It's the movie with Sydney Sweeney and Amanda Seyfried. I forgot what it's called right now. The Housemaid. So that's kind of a success story, and it's great because, for a couple of reasons. One, and this is what I've always said regarding movies in the theaters. So The Housemaid was budgeted at $35 million, and I think as of this weekend, it's going to cost the $150. That wouldn't be very good. $150 million worldwide box office. So obviously it's successful. I think I know it's based on a book. I don't know. I haven't seen the movie. I don't know how the movie ends. I think they're already talking about making a sequel. The fantastic part about that, take the sequel talk aside, is you've got a modestly budgeted film with 2 big actors, female actors actually, and the movie is successful. And that's always what I've been calling for. And I think a lot of other people have. What's gone from theaters, and this is a fact, regardless of whether you watch movies in theaters or not, what's gone is the mid-budgeted, R-rated adult dramas or suspense or whatever genre would be targeted to adults is sorely lacking. The only exception to that rule is horror. The last 4 or 5 years, horror has pretty much had a very successful run of critically acclaimed films and films that have made money. But the horror kind of blueprint has always been forever. The great thing about horror is horror movies are budgeted lower anyway, because you usually don't have big stars in horror movies. You don't have a bunch of special effects. You may have gore, but it's a straightforward, low budgeted movie that they can release them all year round. And if the movie's halfway decent, even if the movie's not great, a lot of times if the trailer's strong and the pitch is strong, you can get a couple of weeks of really good box office. And even if it drops precipitously in the third or fourth week, a lot of these movies will make their budget back and actually turn a profit without having to make $100 million, $150 million. They could make 50, 60, 70, 80 and still end up successful. So that's the blueprint that I think other filmmakers and movie companies need to follow. A modestly budgeted film, like I said, The Housemaid was, I think, $35 million, which is very, very modest. And they're going to get 4 times the money back in box office and possibly a sequel to make more money. So again, that's, I think, really the only path forward for adult dramas to continue to be seen in theaters, because obviously the theaters have become the home of the comic book movies, huge sequels. So of course, like, Avatar and the Marvel films, the DC films, or movies that are rebooted, like The Naked Gun was over the summer. But again, I'm glad for movies like The Housemaid, and I'm glad for original films that get made that end up in the theaters, that end up being successful, because hopefully that'll continue to get people to come out to the movies. In a perfect world for me, I would like to have, both a robust, healthy theatrical window for movies, people going out to see them, continuing to patronize theaters, making these movies successful, making these movie theater chains successful. So I have the opportunity when I can to continue to see movies. I really would be sad if we got to a place, whether it's 5 years from now, 10 years from now, whatever, where movie theaters become a thing of the past. I really hope that doesn't happen. And it's tough because, technology and time and people's taste change and how they view movies. Obviously, people watch things on their phones, on tablets, on laptops, on big screens in their home. I mean, that's the other thing. Forget about even the phone laptop situation. You've got people with home theaters that would rival a movie theater with surround sound and 100-inch screens. And I understand all that. And I love watching movies at home. But I hope that the death of the theater experience is never going to happen, or it's a long way away. But again, with movies, if they can both coincide, that would be the best way to do it. Hopefully, I see this as kind of like every time there's been a threat to movie theaters, they always think it's going to be the end, and it ends up somehow thriving. So you go all the way back to movies when they were the only game in town, and then you had television coming in the 50s, and the movies like, oh my god, nobody's going to watch movies anymore, and that didn't happen. And then the next revolution was in the 80s with video. You have people in Congress going, no, we can't have video, that's going to kill the movie business, it's gone. And it didn't. It actually helped movies make more money after the fact, and movies that actually didn't do well in the theaters became cult classics on video. The biggest example I can think of is Austin Powers, which didn't do great in the movies, but it was exploded on cable and video. And then, of course, now the current, quote unquote threat is streaming, which I think is, and I'm not saying it's not a significant threat, but hopefully the movies will find a way to keep themselves alive by making movies attractive enough for people to go out and see them. So that's my hope. All right, enough of the soapbox. So again, to recap, The Rip, starring Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, directed and written by Joe Carnahan. I am giving 3.5 stars out of 5. Again, I would recommend it if you're big fans of them. I think you'll like the movie a lot. And I've already, ran down my issue with the movie that knocked it down 0.5 star for me. But that doesn't mean the movie's not fun, not entertaining, not action-packed. So I would definitely recommend it. And I think you'll enjoy it if you do watch it. So again, that's The Rip, starring Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, and that is playing now on Netflix. So again, I want to thank everybody that listens and watches the podcast. I really appreciate it. As I say every episode, I appreciate every single person that looks at it and watches it and recommends it. So if you can, follow me on X at Bend Your Ear Pod. If you can share my post, we can talk movies there. I'm there all the time talking movies, and I enjoy it very much. Sprinkled in with football. Now that my team's out of the playoffs, it'll be a lot less football and back to more movies. But feel free to interact with me there. You can go to the website for the show. That's letmebendyourear.com. That has every audio podcast episode all the way back to the first episode. You can email the show at bendyourearpodcast at gmail.com. Feel free to email me, and I'll be happy to respond if you have any movie suggestions, thoughts about the show, things like that. So again, before I end the show, I want to kind of reiterate, I had a Facebook page for the podcast that I had on it was a mess. I had it on a separate account, and it was just a mess, and I kind of ignored it. I've moved it to where I can have everything consolidated. So what I'll do is if you go to Facebook and go to the Let Me Bend Your Ear podcast, I'll probably put the link up on my socials. And if you could follow that page as well, I'd appreciate it, because what I want to do, that'll be another place to watch the videos. So I won't be going live there like I do on YouTube and on Rumble and on X, because there's restrictions on how long the videos stay. So what I'll end up doing is uploading the videos there so that they're there permanently. So starting with this episode, I may upload the To Live and Die in LA as well. But starting that, you'll be able to, if you're on Facebook, you can watch the podcast there if you choose to watch it. But again, the audio podcast is available wherever you get them. So just like I said, if you're on wherever you're at, wherever you listen to podcasts now, if you do, just type in Let Me Bend Your Ear podcast and it should pop up. And if it doesn't, you can always go to the website and download it. And the podcast is on Amazon. I think everybody's got an Amazon Alexa show, whatever you have. Everybody has that. So if you go to Amazon and actually ask it to play the Let Me Bend Your Ear podcast, it'll play the most recent episode, so you can get it there as well. So that's an easy way to listen to the show. So again, wherever you listen to the show, if you could rate and review, that would be great. And also subscribe. So my big ask is if you can subscribe to it wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you could subscribe to the YouTube page and or Rumble, wherever you watch other videos. But obviously specifically YouTube, if you can subscribe there. I'm trying to up my subscriber base there. And like I said, with the video, hopefully the video quality with this new camera has improved greatly. I had nowhere to go but up, because like I said, when you see the older videos, if you watch them, you know that they were not good. At least you could hear me and you could see me, but the video quality was highly questionable. So I'm very happy with this new camera. I think it's much better, and with the backdrop. So now I can have it this way every episode to be consistent and to hopefully aesthetically be more pleasing than it was in the past. And to all the people that watch the videos regularly, I really appreciate it, because I get it wasn't the most aesthetically pleasing visual experience. So I appreciate the people that did watch it. But again, even if you do it as an audio, that's how I started this anyway. I put the video component in for two reasons. One, to hopefully raise the exposure of the show, and two, because I enjoy doing it. So I want to keep doing it that way. So again, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And hopefully I'll have another episode soon. Like I said, hopefully I'm going to start cranking these out more frequently as I continue to promise. But I'll call it a New Year's resolution that I want to try to get these out as often as I can. I'm not going to tell you it's going to be once a week or twice a week or anything like that. I'm giving up doing that. Anytime I can get on, I'm going to get on. So hopefully if I can get on multiple times a week, that'd be great. If I can get on once a week, what I don't want to do is have what I've had before, have a month or two go by where I don't throw an episode up. But I think hopefully now I'm in a place now where that won't be the case. But again, I'm not going to tell you when it's going to be up. So please subscribe. If you listen to the audio, subscribe. You'll get notices when new episodes come out. If you subscribe on YouTube, obviously you'll get notifications when I go live. And like I said, even if you don't watch it live, you can go to the channel later and watch the videos at your leisure. So again, thank you, everyone. I really appreciate the support. And I will be back very soon with another episode. Take care, everybody.